Strongest choice. Chapter 1, the last interruption. She was halfway through saying goodbye when he interrupted her. Don't. The word fell between them with more force than either had expected. Her mouth remained slightly open. One gloved hand rested on the brass handle of the restaurant door. Behind her, through the beveled glass, the street shone with recent rain. The lamps along the avenue had dissolved into pale halos, and beyond them the city seemed to withdraw into its own cold distance. For several seconds neither of them moved. Then she lowered her hand. It was such a small gesture that anyone watching might have missed it, yet he felt it like the turning of some hidden mechanism, a release, or perhaps a lock engaging. She turned back to face him. The years had altered her carefully. That was his first thought. Not softened, not diminished. Altered. Time had refined the angles of her face. The dark hair he remembered spilling loose over bare shoulders was now shorter, touched at the temples with silver she had made no attempt to conceal. Her mouth was unchanged. That same deliberate stillness, as though every word she allowed herself cost something measurable. She studied him with an expression he could not read. "What?" she asked quietly. "Exactly am I not supposed to do?" Her voice was lower than he remembered. He had prepared himself for many things tonight, for politeness, for distance, for the practiced ease of two people long separated by choice and consequence. He had not prepared himself for the sound of her voice. "Leave," he said. A flicker crossed her face, not surprise, recognition. As if she had known, from the moment she rose from the table, that he would say it. The maitre d' glanced discreetly in their direction, then looked away. Around them, the low murmur of the dining room continued undisturbed. Silver-touched porcelain. Glasses met tabletops with muted precision. Somewhere behind the bar, someone laughed too loudly, then caught themselves. The world infuriatingly remained intact. She let go of the door and returned to the table. He did not sit until she had. The waiter appeared almost instantly with the uncanny timing of those who spend their lives navigating private disasters among the privileged. "Another coffee, madam?" "No." "And for sir?" "No." The waiter inclined his head and vanished. Neither spoke. On the table between them sat the remains of dinner. Neither had truly eaten. Her fish had been barely touched. His lamb had gone cold an hour ago. The candles had burned low. Outside, rain began again. At last she folded her gloves with slow precision and placed them beside her plate. "He shouldn't have called me." "No," he said. "Probably not." "Then why did you?" He looked at her hands. He remembered those hands with a clarity that unsettled him. The first time they had touched him had been accidental, a summer afternoon, a crowded university corridor. Her fingers brushing his wrist as she reached for a file he was holding. Nothing, by any rational measure. And yet his body had recognized the contact as if it had been waiting for it. That had been 40 years ago. Now those same hands rested quietly before her, marked only by the faint prominence of veins beneath pale skin, because some things he thought are never finished. But he did not say that. Instead he said, "Your husband died 6 months ago." The words landed badly. He regretted them at once. Her expression did not change, but something in her gaze cooled. "Yes, I'm sorry." So was everyone. The answer was not cruel, only exhausted. He looked down. A line of rain tracked slowly down the window beside them, bending the reflected candlelight into something uncertain. "I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant." Her voice softened slightly. "He was a good man, Adrian." The name unsettled him. Almost no one called him that anymore. At 68, he had become Dr. Vale to his colleagues, Adrian only in legal documents, and among the dwindling handful of people who had known him before his life, became structured by title and expectation. Hearing it now was like hearing an earlier version of himself summoned from another room. "I'm sure he was," he said. She regarded him for a long moment. "There's something almost impressive," she said, "about your timing." "What does that mean?" "It means you waited until there was no one left for you to betray." The sentence struck with surgical precision. He felt himself go still. Across the table she held his gaze. No anger. That would have been easier, only a kind of grave clarity. "I betrayed many people," he said carefully. "Not only you." She gave the faintest nod. "Yes, I imagine that's true." For a moment he thought she might rise again. Instead, she leaned back slightly in her chair and looked toward the rain-dark street. "When your secretary called," she said, "I nearly refused. Why didn't you?" A long pause. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. At our age, curiosity becomes difficult to resist. He let out a breath that almost resembled laughter. The sound surprised both of them. She looked back at him, and for the first time that evening, something gentler entered her face. It nearly undid him. Years ago, he had believed there would always be time to explain, time to return, time to choose differently. It was the most elegant lie of youth. That postponement is not itself a decision. He had learned otherwise, too late. The restaurant was beginning to empty. A woman in a navy coat crossed the room toward the exit, pausing to kiss the cheek of the man settling their bill. Two younger couples stood near the entrance, speaking softly over umbrellas and scarves. Soon the staff would begin the delicate choreography of closing. Still neither moved. "You look tired," she said. "I am. Is it the lecture tour?" "No." "The book?" He hesitated. "No." "What then?" He considered lying. Habit invited it. For decades, he had become skilled at selecting partial truths polished to a convincing sheen. But something about her presence made that impossible. "It's my daughter." She went still, not visibly, only in the minute way that revealed the tension sharpened by care. "What happened?" "She's leaving." "Leaving where?" "Singapore. She accepted a position there. 3 years, possibly more. And this troubles you?" "Yes." "Why?" He almost answered immediately, then realized he did not know. Or rather, he knew and did not wish to speak it aloud. "Because departures acquire a different gravity when one has spent a life failing to stop them. She asked me to dinner last week," he said. "And she told me she spent most of her childhood assuming I would eventually become someone else." Claire said nothing. He continued. "She said she kept waiting for the version of me who would arrive fully present, less distracted, less absent even while sitting across from her." The words sounded harsher spoken aloud. "She was very calm about it," he said. "That was somehow worse." Claire lowered her eyes. There was no judgment in her face, only understanding, and that, more than accusation ever could, filled him with shame. "How old is she now?" 38. She waited a long time. "Yes." Rain struck harder against the windows. Somewhere nearby, thunder rolled low across the city. Claire reached for her water glass. The movement was slight, almost absent-minded, yet he noticed the tremor in her fingers, not age. Emotion. The realization startled him. "You're angry," he said. She looked up. "No, yes." A faint exhale escaped her. "I'm not angry for myself." "Then for whom?" "For your daughter." He absorbed that, then nodded. "Fair enough." After a moment, she said, "Do you know what I used to imagine?" He waited. "That one day I would hear from you. Years later. Some conference, some airport, some chance encounter, and you would finally explain." "Explain what?" "Why?" The single syllable remained suspended between them. He felt absurdly as though he had spent 40 years preparing to answer and still possessed nothing adequate. "I thought I was doing the honorable thing." Her expression did not alter. "By marrying her." "Yes." "Were you in love with her?" He looked at the candle. The flame bent, recovered. "I cared for her." Claire's silence was answer enough. He closed his eyes briefly. There it was, the old shame, still perfectly preserved. When he opened them, she was watching him with a kind of sorrow he could barely endure. "You always preferred the defensible choice," she said. It was not criticism, only fact. He had no defense against facts. Years earlier, there had been a summer in Florence, a borrowed apartment near the river, heat pressing through open shutters, her bare feet against terracotta tile, the smell of peaches and old books. They had been 30. Not children, not reckless, old enough to understand consequence, young enough to believe themselves exempt from it. Then the telegram had come, his father ill, his family demanding his return. His engagement already arranged, already public to Eleanor Whitmore, daughter of the dean, practical architect of every advancement his future promised. He had left the next morning. He told himself he would return in a week. Then after the wedding was postponed. Then after his father recovered, then after the child was born, then after, always after, until after became never. You could have written, Claire said. The quietness of her voice hurt more than anger would have. Yes, but you didn't. No. Why? He met her eyes. And because the hour had become too late for invention, he answered plainly. Because every day I delayed made the truth harder to survive. She considered this, then nodded once. Yes, she said, that sounds like you. The waiter appeared again, discreet and apologetic. We'll be closing in 15 minutes. Adrian nodded. Of course, when the waiter had gone, Claire reached for her gloves. This time he did not stop her. He watched as she drew them carefully over her hands. A final ritual, the shape of departure. I'm staying at the Grand Belmont, she said. The statement startled him. You live in Boston. I know, then why I came for the concert. What concert? She regarded him for a beat. My grandson plays cello with the youth orchestra. Of course, life had gone on constructing itself beyond the boundaries of his imagination. Grandchildren, concert halls, ordinary continuities from which he had long excluded her in his mind, preserving her instead in some impossible suspended version of memory. How long are you here? Until Sunday. Today was Thursday. 3 days. Not enough for anything. Enough for everything. She stood. This time he rose with her. Neither reached for a coat, neither offered a hand. For a moment they simply faced one another in the dimming restaurant, while the staff moved around them with professional invisibility. Then she said very softly, if you ask me again, be certain you know why. Before he could answer, she turned and walked toward the door. The maitre d' opened it for her. Cold air entered, rain-scented and sharp. She stepped into the night and was gone. Adrian remained where he was. The door closed. Its latch settled with a sound so slight it might have been imagined. Yet standing there, listening to it, he understood with perfect certainty that this was not an ending. It was merely the second interruption. And somewhere beyond the rain-dark street, in a hotel room lit by the weak amber lamps of late evening, Claire was waiting for him to decide whether he had finally learned the difference between regret and courage.